This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined. It's been a while, but I'm joined by WBC President Mauricio. Sulaiman, how are you, Mauricio? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Rob. I thought you forgot about me. I don't know what happened. Miss you.
No, I've been relegated to the role of a personal assistant to Andy FuryWilder recently, my colleague, who I know that you've been seeing across the world. So haven't been doing too much interviews, but I've been doing a lot of booking of flights and booking hotels for other people. But yeah, it's nice to see you. It has been a little while.
Yes, it's been a tremendous year for boxing. I think we're going through a golden era of the sport. We don't realize it, but if you look at what has been happening, we see so much activity, so many big names, unification fights, unified champions, and undisputed, and great activity. And it's just getting better and better. Hopefully the world will open up safely, and we can continue and carry on with the activity all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, we did several interviews last year during the lockdown, during the kind of the height of the pandemic. It's obviously quite a different situation now. The world has moved on somewhat. In your role as WBC President, how was your role changed in the last year?
Oh, it has dramatically changed. The traveling and the daily activity that was completely locked for several months had a great impact. And still now that we are getting back to the office and back to public events and traveling, the feeling is uncertain. You feel you're not comfortable as it was, but it's just a process. I am very satisfied with what we did during the challenging times. I think the WBC remained strong and together, and was able to keep in great communications with the boxing world. And now we see the results and great activity, and I'm just very much looking forward to the rest of 2021, because the first half has been tremendous, great fights.
Now, as you mentioned at the start of the interview, it's been a little while since we've caught up. So just give the floor to you a little bit now, really. The WBC have always got things going on in the background. We're always looking to kind of, well, you know, position themselves as the foremost leader in with regards to the governing bodies. What have the WBC had in recent months? What have you got coming up?
Well, we had in the boxing activity, it began January the 2nd, great fight, Luke Campbell, Ryan Garcia, dramatic. Campbell had him down, and then Garcia came back and won the fight. We had Valdez with a dramatic knockout of Berchelt. We had Chocolatito against Estrada in one of the greatest fights of the year. We had Canelo fighting in Miami, then selling out the Cowboy Stadium, 73,000 in a very good fight trying to unify the whole division. Dylan White coming back and knocking out Povetkin, and women's activity has been great. And what is coming up, we have also Josh Taylor becoming undisputed in the super lightweight. Now, in a couple of weeks, we have another undisputed fight between Charlo and Castaño. This Friday, we have Fortuna and Jojo Diaz moving on the lightweight tournament that has been very successful. And then on the 24th, Tyson FuryWilder on the 3rd, which should be a tremendous event in boxing. Then Manny Pacquiao coming back to fight Errol Spence. So it's a great activity, and we continue with the clean boxing program, with the weight management program. We have just signed the first WBC lounge. We're going to open up a restaurant that is going to be like a sports bar, a memorabilia, museum. We expect to open in 1 year. If it's successful, they will have 3 other cities in Mexico, and Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Dallas, and it seems like a very good opportunity. We're moving along with merchandising, with the WBC store, just busy all over the place.
Well, it's good to hear. It's glad that you're keeping busy after, I mean, we've spoken about the last year being sometimes, well, very stressful, but not a lot of activity. So that's great. Canelo hasn't yet sold out the Azteca, but it's not, maybe sometime in the future. Let's just want to start back talking about Julio Cesar Martinez, who we saw recently defend his WBC flyweight title, of course, in Mexico. First and foremost, great to see Matchroom and Eddie Hearn taking a show to Mexico. Some real untapped resources of talent over there in Mexico, obviously now being brought through, or the intention to be brought through by Eddie Reynoso along with Matchroom Boxing.
Yeah, that's tremendous. It's a great opportunity for the upcoming talent. There's so many fighters that just need a little help of visibility in a network, and the Zone is doing a tremendous job worldwide, growing and entering new markets. And this venture between Matchroom and Canelo Promotions is sensational for Mexico, and I am sure they will be very successful.
Just mentioned Julio Cesar Martinez, of course, retained his WBC flyweight title. What's the next move for him? Is the McWilliams-Arroyo fight still something that we could realistically expect to see soon?
Well, there was a permission for McWilliams-Arroyo to do a defense of his title while Martinez was recovering. They have not confirmed if they will do or not a defense, and they might just go directly and fight between them. We're addressing this as we speak. We'll be having news by next week.
Of course, just one weight class above that, you mentioned already that fantastic rematch between Juan Francisco Estrada and Roman Gonzalez. We're looking at least, I spoke to Eddie Hearn yesterday, apparently the trilogy bout is slated for September, which will be for the franchise title. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The franchise designation worked perfectly in this case, in the super flyweight division. Well, there was a world demand for a third fight. We waited 8 years to see the rematch, and after the sensational bout they held early in the year, there was a world demand to have the third one. It was a very close fight. Roman deserves to take another fight with Estrada, and Rubisai, the Thai challenger who has been confirmed as mandatory in the last two conventions, and who was willing to step aside twice to allow the activity of Estrada, first last year when he fought in Mexico, then this year when he fought Gonzalez. So the franchise designation worked out perfectly. Rumbisai will fight Carlos Cuadras, and Chocolatito will fight Estrada, and they will both winners will fight each other for the supremacy of the division. So I am very satisfied and happy. It proven that the franchise designation can lead to the best fights to happen, and this is a clear example of it.
We've spoken on numerous occasions over the years about the franchise title. I think it's fair to say that not every fan is in favor of it, or there's certainly been some instances whereby people will point to certain examples and not in agreement with that. Do you think that this is, as you say, an opportunity to kind of show that is, that this is the franchise title working well? Some of the same people who maybe weren't in favor of it are actually in favor of it for this fight.
Absolutely. Anytime that there's a change, of course, there's human resistance. That's the human nature. We resist change. We like things as they are. When there's something, a new concept, a new rule, something coming up that shakes things up, it is not necessarily popular. But with activity, with actions, with proven results, then things settle down and prove that there is merit to the change. So I feel very satisfied, and this is a great example. And I hope that the fans and the media look at it and understand the concept, because it's something very new. It's different. It's nothing has ever existed in boxing. So hopefully, as I have said from the beginning, once years go by and there's proof of what is happening, it can be accepted.
Just want to move on, and it has been a while since we've spoken, so I just want to talk about Nonito Donaire's win over Nordine Oubaali, of course, for the WBC bantamweight title. First and foremost, what a fantastic win for Nonito Donaire at this stage of his career.
Fantastic. Donaire positioned himself again as a legendary champion now. He had a great fight with Inoue when everybody had ruled him out. And now he comes and conquers the title with a spectacular knockout against a strong champion like Nordin Nubali. And I'm very proud of Nonito, and he represents something very special for the sport, a great story for the sport, and I wish him the best of luck and success.
We've obviously seen Nonito's name in the media quite a lot recently. There's been a well-publicized fallout between himself and Donaire-Casimero, of course, the WBO bantamweight champion. What have you made of that? There's been some very interesting accusations being thrown between the camps, of course, with regards to clean boxing program as well as additional VADA testing. It's not something that we usually associate with Nonito Donaire, but it's got a little bit spicy between the two camps.
Yes, it's very unfortunate. That's one of the features of social media, where something gets completely brought out of the public and out of proportion, and comments and attacks become just simply get like you pour gasoline into a fire, and it just got out of control, and they decided to call the fight off. I did not follow specifically whether it was the chicken or the egg. What was first? I don't know. But the reality is that there's no room in boxing for this type of accusations and this type of foul language, this type of very low class back and forth problems. And I'm sorry, it was supposed to be a celebration with another great bout. He has fallen out, and we will see. Donaire won the title as the mandatory contender, and we will see what is coming up next for him.
Have there been any communications between yourself and Nonito Donaire and his team with regards to what happens next for him?
No, well, we just we were in communications during the process of this situation happening. So we're going to recap and move forward and see what's going to be happening next.
Now, as you mentioned, some of the accusations that were thrown around were unsavory with regards to clean boxing and obviously alleged doping allegations from one camp to the other. Now, there'll be people who'll be watching this interview who aren't really familiar between the difference between the WBC's clean boxing program, the yearly testing that the WBC provides, and VADA year-round testing. I was just wondering if you could make the distinction for people who maybe aren't as familiar.
Yeah, the clean boxing program was created by the WBC with VADA. VADA administers the program, and it is basically a random 365 days a year, 24 hours a day testing protocol. It is random, it is unannounced, out of competition testing. So if you are a WBC champion, or in order to be ranked in the top 15, or in order to compete for a WBC title, you have to enroll in VADA, in the clean boxing program, which means you are eligible to be tested at any moment, anywhere you are, wherever you are, at any time, without notification. And it is just the random, we take the test, and then the results are reported. When there's an adverse finding, then a process begins. There is also contracts for fights. Promoters have contracted many times services of VADA in order to do out of competition testing. So the fighters who will be fighting are subject to this same unannounced testing leading up to the fight. And of course, there's a mandatory testing after the fight, which is conducted along with the boxing commission where the fight takes place. So it's a combination of different programs, but in reality, it is very simple. If you are enrolled, you are subject to be tested any moment, any time by the program. In this case, Casimero enrolled in the WBC clean boxing program in 2017. What was requested was to update the whereabouts, because if you do not continue to report where you are, the agent might show up to collect the sample, and then if you are not there, that is a missed test, which has consequences. So every fighter is responsible to report any move that they have from the gym or from the house. If they go to a camp, they go to a vacation, they have to report. And that's the difficult part of administering more than 500 fighters at the same time, and the reporting of their status. There is an app where you can do it on the phone. And I mean, the program is moving very well. It works very well. As you can see, we just had a horrible situation with Jean Pascal with multiple substances, yet he has the right to defend himself and go through a process. So this is not a witch hunt. This is just a element to keep boxing safe, to make sure that the fighters are going into the ring with a level components of opposition in a safely manner. And if there's a positive case, we have to go after it and really make sure that drugs and procedures stay away from the sport, because this is not a game. You are not scoring points, you're not scoring goals. You're fighting and you're putting your life at risk every time you go into the ring.
Thanks for clearing that up. Hopefully that brings some clarity to people who are watching. Final one on All Things Clean boxing program. What does the WBC need to do, in your opinion, to kind of take it to the next level? Really, not saying that it's inadequate as it is, but of course we always look to improve everything that we're doing, whether you're the WBC or Boxing Social or whoever. What does the WBC look to do moving forward with regards to clean boxing, and also what does it need to do that? Is it more funding? Do you need a better relationship with trainers, fighters? What are your kind of the future for the clean boxing program?
Yes, funding, of course, it's a very important topic. It's a costly program. Every time you go and test someone, it involves travel, it involves expenses, it involves lab costs, administration. This clean boxing program costs nothing to the fighter or the manager or the trainer or the promoter. It's funded by the WBC. When promoters contract fights, it's funded by the promoters. So if there were more testing by boxing commissions, by managers, by promoters, by fighters themselves, there's a voluntary part of the program as well, which is exemplary. Any fighter that enrolls voluntarily, even when he's not ranked in the top 15, that is great news. But if more organizations, if more promoters would get into the testing protocols, that would be a great added value. We need more awareness opportunities, awareness programs, sit downs with the fighters, with the trainers, to teach them. Many of the positive results of the adverse findings have been accidental. So it is not necessarily that a fighter is trying to cheat, but sometimes it's ignorance, it's not having full knowledge of what is going into their body. So this is an ongoing program. The more people that support it, the better results we will have and the more protection our fighters will have in the ring.
Okay, so moving on to the lightweights, we discussed earlier on in the interview that this weekend we have Javier Fortuna versus Jojo Diaz. Javier Fortuna seemingly has been waiting around for a long time. Obviously, he's boxed, but to get his opportunity to fight for the WBC title. Just to confirm, obviously, we've spoken about it on several instances. The WBC 135-pound division has been, very confusing at times over the last 2 or 3 years, with various fighters moving up, down, interim champions, franchise champions, etc. The winner of Jojo Diaz versus Javier Fortuna will become mandatory for Devin Haney. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. As you mentioned, he had a signed contract to fight Luke Campbell when Devin Haney was injured. Then the pandemic hit. Then Devin Haney recovered. Then he was going to fight Linares, and Linares contracted COVID. Then he was going to fight Ryan Garcia, and Ryan Garcia had his personal issues. So finally, time has come. This Friday, Fortuna will get the fight against Jojo Diaz. The winner will be fighting next Devin Haney. That is the ruling.
Will the WBC be stringently enforcing the mandatory for Devin Haney in that instance? He's not faced a mandatory, to my knowledge, yet as the WBC champion.
Correct. As you point out, there have been many things that have gotten into the way. His injury, the pandemic, and then travel restrictions and a diversity of situations. And now the winner of Friday will be the mandatory to fight against Haney.
And that will be ordered for Devin Haney's next fight.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, where does Ryan Garcia fit into the picture? You mentioned there, obviously, he's outside of the ring issues. He was the interim champion, as we discussed at the start of the interview, with the win over Luke Campbell. What's his current status with the WBC?
His status is that we are supporting him. He has to be praised by coming out and facing his personal situation. Mental health is so fragile and so important. And it is more often than not that whoever is suffering anxiety, who is suffering stress, who is suffering the demons of the mental stress, often hides. And that makes that illness much bigger and much more dangerous. Many result in tragic situations. So for him to come out and leave everything aside and make sure that he attends himself is a very brave action, and we support it. We support him. Whenever he's ready to come back to the ring, as soon as he is ready and notifies formally that he's ready, we will assess what are the options for him to come back to the WBC route. But most importantly is his personal situation first.
Will the WBC reinstate him as WBC interim champion when he does return to the ring?
No, that is the title that Fortuna and Diaz are competing for this Friday. So once he's back, we promised him a direct opportunity for whatever option there is. So we're not going to abandon Ryan Garcia. We will see what is fit, and we will address it at the time when he's ready to come back.
We've discussed some of the huge fights that we've got coming back. Boxing is back, Mauricio. I'm very much looking forward to it, as I'm sure you are. None more so than Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence in Las Vegas on August the 21st. These are the type of fights that we need this year. After the last year, the last 18 months of COVID, what a massive fight, and what an opportunity for Manny Pacquiao to extend his already rich legacy in the sport against Errol Spence.
Well, Manny Pacquiao is timeless. He's eternal. He has proven over and over that he's special and that he's got superpowers. He's a great influence to his country and all the Filipinos living around the world. He has devoted his life to serve others. And when he comes into the ring, that's where he is, Manny Pacquiao. So he's doing such a sacrifice and has done that throughout the years in order to become a leader for his people. While he could have just remained in the sport, and that takes a huge toll physically and mentally, but it also makes a great motivation. So this is perhaps a unique opportunity, perhaps the last opportunity for Manny to show what he has, because Errol Spence is a tremendous champion. He's undefeated, he's crafty, he's a miracle man. He's a survival of something special that could have changed and even could have killed him in that traffic accident. But I'm very much looking forward for this tremendous fight that will be taking place on August 21st.
Now, of course, over the years, we've seen Manny Pacquiao involved in some fantastic fights, some mega events against your countrymen, Barrera, Morales, Marquez, etc. Is there any in particular moment that stands out from your time of working alongside Manny Pacquiao? Of course, he started off all of those years ago as the WBC flyweight champion, which is remarkable to think. Is there any in particular memory that stands out for you?
It's so many. It's all good. Manny has been a tremendous person, humble, always ready to support any activity. And just as you say, he was a flyweight champion of the world 20 years ago. And now he's fighting for the welterweight. He has been super welterweight champion. I just respect him very much. I like him. He's my friend. And there's so many things that we can remember about Manny Pacquiao. When we had the convention in Manila, that was a special moment with the president of the country, Manny Pacquiao, and my father doing the opening ceremony. So he's just a special man that has put boxing in the map and has made people, just follow the sport and follow him. So he's a very great ambassador for the sport.
And from one big fight to another, next weekend, of course, as you mentioned, Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castaño for all the marbles at 154 pounds. It seems to me as though we're starting to get more unifications. The emphasis on undisputed is starting to become a little bit more prominent again. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and it's very good. We have been extremely supportive of unifications and undisputed champions. That's what the fans like. They want to see one champion per division. And we have been working and talking with WBO, IBF to see what we can do when there's a unified champion in order to keep him as unified. Because then the mandatories get in the way, and then the orders by the organizations and the disputes and the struggle for power. I believe that the unified champion should be recognized and should be given special status. So let's see what happens. Castaño Charlo is a great match in San Antonio, July 17. We had Josh Taylor. Now he's undisputed. You have Teofimo, the undisputed. And we can see a movement for this, which is great. It is very good for the sport. And we just have to find a way to adjust and be flexible and to keep as much as possible support to the unified champions.
We mentioned kind of Brian Castaño and Jermell Charlo. We've mentioned Teofimo Lopez there. As I mentioned, it seems as though there's this growing emphasis to crown one champion per weight class. Going back to the lightweights, kind of still having that discussion, I guess you would call it, between Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney at 135 pounds. Is there an emphasis? Is there a desire for the WBC to match those guys together to kind of rid the 135 pound division of any question?
Well, that's a fight that has been always in the books, in the ideas. As we were talking about the franchise designation, that's a case where, in my personal opinion, it perfectly worked because it allowed Lomachenko to do the fight with Teofimo and have the unified champion. And then it allowed Devin Haney to recover from his injury and to make very good money as champion. There's a tournament going on it's just proven to give very good fights. Unfortunately, there was a few things with the COVID and with a mental health issue, but otherwise would have at least two more great fights in the division. So as I say, people may look at it as a spot, as a concern, maybe there's a what if, but I see it as a great opportunity for great fights. So now Teofimo has the COVID-19 and we don't know what's his status, when he will be ready to come back. But at the same time, there will continue to be good activity.
I've spoken to Teofimo Lopez recently. I've spoken to Devin Haney recently. They both insist that they are the WBC champion, not the other one. What do you make of that?
It's social media. It's going back and forth. It's being active in the face of the fans. What we certainly see is that Teofimo is the undisputed champion because he defeated Lomachenko and took all the belts. And Devin Haney is a WBC champion en route to great fights and to continue to have the opportunities that he has as a champion. So it's a cycle, difficult to get out. People will see it one way and will stick to that. Others will open their mind and see the benefit of having this structure in that particular case and hopefully accept it and be happy and grateful to see great fights happening at the same time.
Okay, well, before we discuss the heavyweights, let's take a pit stop. Bridgerweight. When are we going to see a Bridgerweight world champion, Mauricio?
Well, it was scheduled for April and June. The COVID-19 got in the way in Canada, but we're going to have it September 18 at the Montreal Bell Center with Ribas against Jennings. We already have a silver champion. We have an international champion. They will be fighting the winner of September, but there's no hurry. We have, our decisions are not taken in hurry and just to do one and then move on and forget about it. This is an ongoing situation that is going to stay for good. So it's another weight category and it will prove to be great. We have received in the last few months very good feedback and comments from fighters that have felt the difference and have seen the opportunity to be in Bridgerweight. So I'm very happy and it's moving very well.
We've spoken in the past about the WBC making this venture, and going out and making the Bridgerweight division. I've also spoke to you about other sanctioning bodies and other governing bodies, whether or not that they would be willing to explore the Bridgerweight division. Have you had any indication from your colleagues over at the WBA, the IBF, the WBO, as to whether or not that they would be interested in making a Bridgerweight division?
No, we have not discussed this topic at all. And that's a matter of their own governance. And we will see what happens eventually, but we're just moving ahead and with very good results.
Okay, well, finally, the heavyweights. Now, we always like to talk about the heavyweights here on Boxing Social. This time last year, we were waiting for Wilder Fury 3. We've had to wait a little bit longer. I think we were supposed to go July, then October, then December, but we're getting that fight. We're getting
December 19th was the last, yes.
December 19, yeah, and it's already 6-7 months ago. It's crazy how this year has flown by, but we do have a date. Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. Again, similarly to the other fights that we've described, really good for the sport to get a high-level match like that for fans to enjoy.
Yes, it was the last great fight before the pandemic. It was a tremendous event, February 22nd to 20 in Las Vegas at the MGM. Now it's at the T-Mobile. July 24, there's so much bad blood and there's so much expectation and what one says and the other says. And Wilder, after being champion 5 years, has been hiding for a year, concentrating, and he says he's ready and he's coming back. Fury has been very visible everywhere and very in contact with the world, and he says he's gonna do it again. So it's going to be a tremendous event in a couple of weeks.
You mentioned, we mentioned at the start of the interview about Nonito Donaire and Donaire-Casimero and their kind of back and forth, some quite unsavory allegations and things thrown back and forth between them. We've seen the same between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury over the last year. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that as the WBC president, kind of the back and forth between the two camps over the last year.
Well, it is something that has always happened in boxing, the back and forth. Sometimes it's a creation to hype a fight. Most of the times it's real. When that bell rings, everything goes out the window and whatever happens in the ring. And when the fight is over, they hug each other and recognize each other. That's the beauty of the sport. There's so much at stake. The spirits are so hot, but at the end, they are humble and they are honorable. And they understand why they're in the ring and what happens when you're in the ring. So I'm very proud of our athletes. I don't like when it goes too far, but it's the nature of publicizing or the nature of expressing their own concerns and fears and stress. But at the end, when that bell rings, they're the same and they go and try to look the same and go and get the green and gold. Do
you think we'll see that after this fight? Do you think we'll see them embrace, hug each other, kumbaya,
Absolutely.
Everybody's okay?
Absolutely, I have no doubts.
That would be good. I would very much like to see that, whoever wins on July the 24th. I think it would be good for the sport. Where are we with the WBC heavyweight mandatory status, Mauricio, at the minute?
At this moment, there is no mandatory contender in the division. We have this fight that is happening on the 24th. and afterwards we'll be addressing this matter.
Of course, Dillian Whyte, we mentioned he returned against Alexander Povetkin, got revenge with a knockout victory. He's the interim champion now, so I'm assuming after July the 24th, the WBC will put a timescale as to the winner defending against him as the mandatory. Is that correct?
Well, we have just seen in the news that he will be defending his title in August or fighting in August. We have not received a sanction request. That's what we saw in the news. So this is always ever ongoing situation. There's not much I can say right now. We're in a process that we have to deal with, and as soon as we have news about this matter, we will be letting it know.
When was the last mandatory defense of the heavyweight title? Was the rematch, was Tyson Fury installed as Deontay Wilder's mandatory for the rematch, the second fight last February?
Yes, when we had the convention in Cancun in 2019, you may recall that Dillian Whyte was ongoing a UCAT process. So everything was on hold. It was uncertain. We had a petition to do the mandatory recognition for Fury fighting Wilder. It was granted, and the WBC announced then that whenever the UCAT finding was imposed or known, or that was going through a process that was very closed and we had no knowledge of anything. So by the end of the year, UCAT freed Dillian Whyte, and that's when he was confirmed as interim champion. So that is what happened during those times and how Fury became the mandatory of Wilder at that time.
So with that in mind, the last fight, the rematch between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury being a mandatory, there's a chance that the WBC will allow the winner of Wilder Fury 3 to have a voluntary. Is that correct?
I am not going to comment at this moment. I would like to continue the process, to go and not be irresponsible in reaching a speculation on what is it. We have July 24. We will see what happens, and we will see if Dillian is fighting in August, and we will see. But we will certainly know and let know the public what will happen in the heavyweight division.
Okay, well, we look forward to it, as I'm sure you look forward to July the 24th. Very, very lucky that you are to be going there. I'd very much like to be there myself, but unfortunately not. Hopefully, I will catch you at some point, hopefully in 2021. But Mauricio, Sulaiman, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Good to catch up. Hopefully, it won't be too long until we speak again.
Thank you so much, my friend. Take care and all the best.
Thanks, Mauricio.
Thank you.
You